Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm just a girl doing life at uni. I've actually got to the point now where I've done all of my work that I need to do before Christmas. So I can kind of just chill until my sister gets here. She's gonna come down for Christmas and we're gonna have a Christmas by the beach, which is really cool. But I just thought, like, what can I do for the next 5 days that will keep me entertained? And then I realized that I haven't completed my 2024 reading challenge. On Goodreads you can set your reading goal, and I set 20 books and I've read 14. And I thought, there's literally 10 days left of the year and my sister arrives in 4. And I was like, should I try and complete my reading challenge before she gets here? So I had this idea yesterday and I picked a book to start reading, and I did start it yesterday. So yesterday was technically day 1, but it was like 10 p.m. So I was like, I'll do the intro tomorrow. So I started reading. I started reading this. It's called Throttled. First of all, I hate the title, but we'll move on. And it's an F1 themed romance. If you've watched any of my videos so far, you might have deduced that I am an F1 fan. But the moment I found out that these books existed, not these ones specifically, but like F1 romances generally, I swore I'd never touch them, because to me it just feels a little bit too close to real person fan fiction. Now I love fan fiction, I love fan art, I love any kind of fandom expression, but specifically when it comes to fictional things. So when people write fan fiction about fictional characters, I love that. I eat that up. I could consume that all the live long day. But the moment I see people writing fan fiction about real life, living, breathing human beings, I feel like that's a slippery slope. You're really blurring the lines there between what's real and what isn't. It's really encouraging that parasocial relationship. No judgment, it's just not for me, and I don't involve myself with that genre. But I was talking to a friend of mine that I met quite recently actually, and she loves F1, and she was like, I've been reading these books and I really like them. It's a whole series apparently. There's like 4 others. And she's like, this is the first one in the series, and you can borrow it if you like, because if you like F1 and you like romance, you'll like this. Like, it's that simple. And I thought, okay, maybe I've judged this too harshly. I haven't even read them and I'm already making judgments about what they are. Supposedly this one is based on, I think she said it was Charles Leclerc. And then there's other ones about like Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly, and they have different names, which I'm so glad. I was like, maybe I've been too hasty in my judging. I read 2 chapters last night. It's just written in the strangest manner. I truly... I don't like it at all, but I'm really annoyed because I've selected 6 books that I thought I can just rip through these. When it's like an easy read, I can read quite quickly and I can just get through stuff. So these are the books that I have settled on as my 5 books in 5 days. We've got Throttled by Laura Asher, which... why is it called Throttled? I understand why it's called Throttled. It's about, like, you know, you hit the throttle in a car. I get it, but all I can think about is the second definition of throttled. I realised that was probably intentional, but it makes me very uncomfortable. Anyway, So Late in the Day by Claire Keegan. This I bought purely for the cover. People say don't judge a book by its cover. I regularly judge books by their cover, and I just thought it was so beautiful. It's also very small. Kind of feels like cheating, but there are no rules here. This one is also a nice short story. It's called Heatwave by Victor Jestin. I think this one's going to be quite intense. So I thought if I had a day where I did these 2 in one day, and I start with this one and I let this one sit for a little bit and then maybe go and do something, and then I come to this one, and if this one like tilts my world on its axis, then I can like sleep on it, you know? And then I've got The White Priory Murders, John Dixon Carr writing as Carter Dixon. Cool. It's a Christmas book, so I thought, what better time than to read a Christmas book than Christmas time. And then I've got Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero, which is thick. This is the first book in the 2nd series of the Percy Jackson books, and I love it. So I feel like I could get through this quite quickly. Now, those are the 5 books I've chosen, but I'm gonna give this a chance. I'm gonna try and get through it. It doesn't bode well that the first 2 chapters have been painful to get through. It's just not a writing style that I enjoy. Why are we writing books based on real people? Did we not learn from the After series?
Molly, shut up.
Okay, I'm procrastinating, so I'm gonna give this a go, and I'm gonna give you an update. I have been reading this book all afternoon. I'm just over 2/3 of the way through. I've just taken a much needed break to eat and to shower, and I truly am of the opinion that this may be one of the worst books I've ever read. Like, it's so bad. I feel like I've committed, like I hate not finishing books. It's very, very rare that I DNF a book, and I just can't bring myself not to finish it, because the whole point of this is that I'm gonna whack out 5 books in 5 days, and if I then am like, I'm not gonna finish this, I'm gonna have to do a whole nother book, and it's just, I just want to finish it. So I've got 100 pages left. I do want to give my kind of semi-coherent review of why I don't like it, but right now I just need this entire experience to be over, so I'm gonna go finish the last 100 pages, and then I'm gonna come back and talk to you. This isn't the ideal start to this challenge. It's so bad. I really wanted to give it a chance. Like, it's actually worse than I was expecting, which is quite an achievement because I did not have high expectations. I'm gonna finish this book. Right, I finally finished it, and I frankly feel like I've aged 10 years. I really didn't enjoy that. I said I wanted to give more of a coherent review, and I'm gonna do this as quickly as possible because I just want to be done talking about this book. The first rule of writing is show, don't tell. So you have to find a way to communicate to the reader how people are feeling, why they're feeling that way, etc., etc., without explicitly spelling everything out. And what this book does is spell everything out. My god, everything was so literal. There was no room for interpretation about anything. There were times when she would start to build like a metaphor or symbolism, and it was kind of weak symbolism, but it was there. I was like, I can see what you're doing, you know, like, fair. But then the very next sentence, she'd explain the symbolism, like she'd spell it out for you, which is not the point of symbolism. There was one part where she used the word foreshadowing, and I was like, I fear this would have been more effective if you had done the foreshadowing rather than written that something was foreshadowing. You know, I just thought that was a weird choice. And then my other main gripe with this book was that all of the dialogue felt a little bit stilted and just a bit jarring. I felt like any time anyone had speech, it brought me out of the book and it reminded me that I was reading a book. It didn't feel like the conversations flowed. And also everyone spoke with the same speech patterns. That's a trap that a lot of authors can fall into, that all of their characters speak in the same way or potentially in the way that they speak. So if you're writing a book, you have to try to make the characters seem like separate people. And when it came to the speech, they all spoke with the same structure. And that kind of bothered me. I think, unfortunately, this is just a book that has all of the things that I don't like. So it was written in a tense that I don't like, it was written in first person, it was written with a lot of like sexual references that I just didn't feel were necessary. I feel like smutty scenes can really add to a book, and I feel like at least 50% of the sexual references made in this book could have not been there, and it would have had zero impact on the plot. While I was reading, I was trying to come up with something good, something that I liked about the book, because I always feel really bad when I read books and I don't like them, because I feel like authors put so much time and effort into their books, and to read it and like genuinely feel pain, I always feel really bad. So I was trying to think of something that I liked. I think the pacing was decent. I think she paced it fairly well. I will say their relationship was very wholesome and they had some cute moments here and there. I hate not finishing books, so I persevered, and that's one book down. But I do feel like 10 years have been taken off my life. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. It is midday of the next day and I'm gonna start this book. Hopefully I can just do it in one sitting, so I will update you. It has quite literally been 35 minutes and I have finished this. It's only like 40 something pages and the text is quite large, so got through this really quickly. I really enjoyed it. It's beautifully written. I don't have much to say about it. It's a very short book. If you want to read a great piece of short fiction, read this. It kind of explores, if I'm reading from inside of the book, it explores if a lack of generosity might ruin what could be between men and women. And it's kind of depressing, but it's also kind of, I don't know, empowering in a way. I don't have much to say about this other than I really liked it and I highly recommend. I'm gonna go and do some batch cooking and then I'm going to make a start on this book. Okay, it's 6:15 and I'm about to tackle Heatwave. So it's just about 8 o'clock and I've just finished Heatwave. It was very intense, which I was kind of expecting, so I feel like if you went into this book blind, it would be quite a lot. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well written. My favourite thing about it was that it was written in a very like clever, witty way. Like there were some really good lines that really landed and that kind of made me smile, but they were very dark in their humour, but I just thought it was phrased so well, which will be partly due to the original author and partly due to the translation. It was originally written in French and then translated by Sam Taylor, and I just think really well done. Do check the trigger warnings before you go near this book, but if you think you would enjoy it, I highly recommend. I think it was very well done. It built tension throughout the entire thing. Even if I hadn't been doing this challenge, I would have probably read this in one sitting, so very good. Very intense, but very good. It is 3 p.m, which is so much later than I wanted it to be when I started my 4th book, but here we are. The beginning of the day has been a bit chaotic. The fire alarm went off at 3:30 last night, so that disturbed my sleep, and then I slept through both of my alarms, so I was late to get up and do everything that I needed to do before I started reading, so blah blah blah, we're starting. I've decided to swap out this book, which is so chonky, for this book, which is much less chonky. In my 19 years of life, I've never read The Talented Mr. Ripley, so we are correcting that now. Percy Jackson just seemed like too long of a book to get through in one single day. I need to read this book today and then the final book tomorrow, and that will take me to 19 books, which will leave me with 1 week left of the year to read my 20th book, and that was my goal. So I'm gonna get started on this. It is 3 p.m, so we're gonna see how much progress I can make before I need to stop for dinner. Okay, I've read 60 pages, I'm gonna go make dinner, I'm gonna eat, and then right back to it.
6 hours later.
It is midnight and I'm exhausted, but I have just finished this and I'm a little bit in disbelief. It kept me hooked until the final page. I'm a bit in disbelief at how this has ended. I kind of love it though. It's so interesting how it's framed that you root for him. And you shouldn't, because he's, I don't know man, I feel like I'll maybe talk about it more in the morning. I'm so tired. But this was so good and I feel like it lived up to its reputation of being an amazing book. I literally just closed it, so I don't think I've processed it yet, but 4 books down, 1 to go. It is day 5, book 5, let's go. It is 3:30 and I am halfway through the book. I'm enjoying it so far, but I need to go and run an errand and then I will be back to finish it. I finished it! So that is 5 books read in 5 days. Pretty cool. I enjoyed this one. I feel like it's quite dated. It's kind of a reflection of the time that it was written. Originally published in 1935. And it is rather reflective of that, I think. The way men treat women and just some of the comments, some of the phrases used kind of had me going like, oh. But it was really well written in the sense that it was a really like tight murder mystery, and the way every single chapter revealed slightly more information that was like shocking. It like completely reframed the whole narrative. Like every moment, like a character would come into the room and be like, we've just heard this, and you'll be like, oh my god, and then the next chapter the same thing would happen. And I feel like it was a really great way of like forcing you to pay attention, because every single chapter there was a new development, and every new development turned the story on its head.
So she killed him.
I did not.
So she killed her.
I did not.
And the way they revealed who the murderer was a great ending to the book. So a little more on the talented Mr. Ripley. I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed seeing the story told from the murderer's perspective. Spoiler alert, he murders people. I loved how you got like every single little detail of how he covered things up, and then when the police were investigating, you could see why they couldn't connect things, because the way he was behaving was so unhinged. You could see why they weren't making these connections. But I spent every single page of this book in insane anticipation of the moment that they discovered him and like figured it out. And I know that was obviously because he was feeling that too for a lot of it. He was just kind of waiting to be caught, really. And that's what makes that book so gripping, because you're just like, every time you turn a page, you're like, okay, now they're gonna get him. Now they figured it out. And to get to the end and it end the way it did, I felt like there was like adrenaline coursing through me. So this was from the murderer's perspective, and this was your kind of classic murder mystery, almost like Agatha Christie vibes. Of these 5 books, I would say that this one was my favourite. I really enjoyed the way it was written, specifically some of the sentence structures I just thought scanned really beautifully. I don't know if this makes sense, but you know when you're reading and you get halfway through a sentence and it's so long that you're almost lost with like how the commas, you're supposed to like pace it in your head, and you get a bit confused about like the context of each phrase. This book, if I ever felt like I was getting a bit lost, I'd go back to the beginning of the sentence and I'd reread it, and I'd get to the end and be like, wait, that actually scans so smoothly. And I haven't really had that with a book before. I just really appreciated that even the much longer sentences still made sense. Do you ever read, I had it a couple of times with this book, do you ever read a sentence where you're like, I'm not actually entirely sure if that makes grammatical sense? And I did have that occasionally with this, and I do get that often. But this one, whenever I went back to check, always checked out, so I appreciate that. I think you can probably guess that my least favourite of the 5 was this one. I still have issues with the title. I still don't want to look at the title. And having read the 4 books that followed this one, this one's not for me, and that's okay. I really enjoyed doing this. I feel like I've learned a new level of like perseverance. Reading a novel in a day is quite a challenge. I didn't really realise, even when I was really enjoying the books, how much I would feel like, right, power through, you know? I mean, what a great problem to have, having so much free time that I can persevere through a book. But even this one, which I was loving, I kind of got to the end and I was like, okay, I need a break now. But there we have it, 5 books in 5 days. I now have a week left of December to read my 20th book of the year. So thank you so much for coming along for this journey. I've had a great time. I hope you all have a great Christmas, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.